It's actually a good topic because what I have found with AI storytelling in particular is there's a lot more telling and a lot less showing. I
Hmm.
can tell because the humanity in storytelling is the showing.
Hmm. And it's well, oh, let's do that. Let's talk about sensory writing then. Let's do that
Yes, let's talk about sensory writing
because
and
that's
the,
the
yes.
show. Don't tell. Okay, let's do that. All right. Welcome to no. Welcome to Pros Talking Prose. Troy and I are very excited right now because we just figured out what we're going to talk about. Yay!
Yay,
So,
woohoo!
yay. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of exciting. I hope we don't go on too much of a tangent, but I am very excited about this one because again, we're kind of talking about something that we both know and love, and that's story. And particularly today, we're going to talk about sensory writing or showing, not telling, and how that relates to what we're seeing in AI trends and just kind of explain this in a lot more detail, give you guys some ideas and tips and tricks on how to kind of explore this when you're writing your own books and ultimately understand and discover the joy of that human experience that we get when we write. So I'm gonna start off this with just how this kind of fruit came into fruition. Troy and I were just kind of brainstorming, and I mentioned that I came across a video recently in my feed about a guy who was talking about the bombing of Wheel of Time. And I didn't go into the particulars of the story. I just kind of are the reel, I think, or the video. I think it was actually a long form video, but it was like I got like the 5 to 10 second little intro. And what it was is he was talking about how people are more and more they're bored because writers in Hollywood tend to be telling more of these and then stories. And people are done with that. They want to go back to what storytelling is, and that is the human experience. That's the relatable characters. That's the oh, how can I invest my time and my attention for this hour and a half for a movie or TV show, or 8 hours to 16 hours in a book. How am I going to invest that time, and why do I want to invest that time with you? And that is going to be because you're going to create a character that people want to see what happens to that character. Okay, so we want to hang our hang our flag or whatever in that person's camp and go, yes, go, 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 go. Or, oh my gosh, how are they going to get out of this? And so that's what drives us to be invested in story. And story is very much the way we connect with each other. I mean, when you sit down with your friends and family, you're all telling stories. I just told Troy a story about how I spent the last couple weekends working on pillars, and I'm just like exhausted. And yeah, we tell stories. It's our life. Troy just went on a trip, and he could tell us of the story of that trip, and how he and Holly had a great time and got to see some amazing things. So we we tell stories, but really what we're doing when we're telling stories and the way we stay invested in those stories is by sharing those human sensory type experiences that we have, and that is show don't tell. um for the sake of forgetting this story later, I want to just say, like, a couple years ago I went to a writers guild meeting way back when they were kind of hot and heavy, and we had a pretty good attendance. There was a luncheon that we had, and this guy came to the luncheon, and I don't know who he was. I can't even remember. I'm so sorry. I can't remember the name of the guy. I think he was a best-selling author, but he was talking about how you write stories. And he said one of the things that he mentioned is he kind of gave us an excerpt from a book, and in there he was talking about the smell of the fur of this bear as he was in this cave with this bear, and he was describing the smell of that fur. And it was funny. I was looking around the room and you could see people doing this. And at the end of his reading of that, he says, I captured at least three-quarters of this room because I watched the reactions of you and you could all relate with that nose. You
The
could
smell.
remember. And he said he gave a statistic, and it was specifically that your nose remembers more than anything else in your body.
Hmm.
And when you can pinpoint a smell and put that into your book, you've got your reader. You've got them.
Yes. Yes.
So that,
Well, and this is proven. I actually have a story that proves
yeah,
this.
go ahead.
So Nick Nelson and I, when we were doing our editing thing, we were talking about, we actually got off topic. I know, surprising, but we were talking about the difference between getting into a flow state when
Yeah.
you're writing or editing or whatever, and what's called a fugue state. And
Yeah.
if you have ADHD, you know what this is.
Hmm.
And if you've experienced it with someone that you know that has ADHD,
Hmm.
then you really understand what it is. And it's very helpful for you to understand what it is, because when you get into that fugue state, which sometimes comes out of a flow state, then you don't sense anything, like nothing. Like
Hmm.
you, if you, but the things that'll bring you out of it is physical touch in some
Hmm.
cases and smells. And so part of the story is there was a time when, so I was in Pennsylvania, I'm working on this contract. So I come home, I got this story in my head, I gotta write it. And so I sit down, I put my headphones on, I hit my keyboard. And at the time, I'm roommates with my cousin, right? And
Hmm.
so I'm in a spare room. She's got her bedroom, which is past mine in the hallway. So she comes home from work. My cousin is not being quiet because, I mean, why would she be quiet? You know, she's doing
Hmm.
her usual thing. She comes by, looks in, sees I got my headphones on, I'm writing or whatever. Don't acknowledge her, no nothing. So I just must not have heard me or whatever. She goes into her room. She's making all kinds of the typical after work noise. She takes a shower, all the kind of stuff. She comes out again, past the room, checks on me again. Troy hasn't moved really,
Hmm.
except for his fingers. I'm typing, writing into the whole thing. She went out again, started making dinner, making noise, making dinner, all that kind of stuff. Came back, checked on me again, not moving. So she
Hmm.
goes back out, and finally, what brought me out of that state was the smell of dinner cooking. The thing that brought me out was my nose
Yeah.
before anything else. And this is something Dave Farland used to talk about, using your senses in writing to
Hmm.
really immerse people in the moment, especially so there's a certain order, psychological order, that your
Okay.
mind likes to perceive senses in. And the
Okay.
first one is touch. Just like we
Okay.
talked about, the touch is what brings you out of those type of things.
Right.
Then it's audio, then visual, followed by the other senses.
Hmm.
So if you go through your writing, if when you start a scene, the first thing that the person experiences is touch, right?
Hmm.
So, what does your character feel? What's the temperature? What is something that they feel, that they
Hmm.
physically feel? And then what do they hear?
Hmm.
And then what do they see? And then what do they smell or taste? And if you
Okay.
go through things repeatedly in that order, it draws us psychologically into a scene.
I'm
And it's
curious.
amazing how it actually works.
I'm curious
Um,
because we've deconstructed. We should deconstruct a chapter together and just do this once, but
oh,
we should do this.
yes.
But I've been through a couple of workshops where we've just deconstructed, and I still say that the chapter one of Hunger Games probably follows the model of first chapter writing better than anything else I've ever seen.
Yes.
It's probably one of
Best
the,
world building,
yeah,
best world
it's just
building.
amazing.
Um, Same thing with, like, so I can, while you're looking that up, I
Yeah,
can
I'm
tell
just
you like
looking to see if she goes through this
oh yeah, the first
order.
episode of Breaking Bad. If you've seen the first episode, the first thing that's happening is basically this guy standing there half dressed in his underwear and the wind is blowing. Okay. So the first thing is, you can almost feel the wind because of the way that it's in the desert. You can tell it's not a cool wind, that type of thing. And you can hear it because you can hear a shirt flapping
Yeah.
in the wind,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then you see it. You see the shirt attached to like the
Mm-hmm.
rearview mirror of this RV, it turns out to be, of course. And then so you feel it and you hear it and then you see it. And so even in movies, you see that we do this, like it's different in movies, but it's similar in the way that you're immersing someone in the scene using their senses. Now, but the important thing about both Hunger Games and Breaking Bad, when you're looking at that scenario, is what are we focused on? We're focused on a character. In Hunger
Mm-hmm.
Games, it's Katniss.
It's Katniss
We're experiencing her world,
through
and
her
I
eyes.
we'll have to like actually dig into the text and look and
Mm-hmm.
see how those senses go,
I'll tell you
but what
right
order they're
here.
going. But
Are
we're
you
focused
ready?
on her.
Are you
Yeah,
Are you ready? This is amazing
yeah.
because if you watch the movie, the first thing you hear is Prim scream,
Hmm.
right? So there's your immediately hear her
Your
scream.
audio.
Right, your
Yep.
audio. In the book, this is interesting. She says, "When I wake up, the other side of the bed is cold. Touch.
Yes. Feel.
My fingers stretch out, seeking Prim's warmth, but find only the rough canvas cover of the mattress." So we got touch first.
Hmm.
Then it says she must have had a bad dream and climbed out to be with our mother. Then she says she props herself up on the window, up on one elbow, and there's enough light in the bedroom to see them, her sister and
Hmm.
Prim, her sister Prim curled up on the side of her mother. And then she sees the cat and describes the cat, and it's just really kind of interesting. So you're right, it goes from touch to almost like to a feel, like not just a touch
Hmm.
texturally or like a texture, but it's like it goes into
But a
this,
feeling.
but a feeling, right? Because she sees her
Hmm.
mom and she sees her sister, and then she contrasts that with this ugly nasty cat that she hates, which is
Hmm.
amazing because wow, what a contrast, right? To go from this feeling
Hmm.
of like that's my family right there to this, oh, there's that stupid cat. And she even
Hmm.
talks about the goat cheese and the basil leaves that are sitting on the table.
Hmm.
So you could almost smell that, right? But anyways,
Hmm.
then
And
she goes into the
almost taste
description
it
of, yeah, and she goes
because
into the
it's
world building and
food.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it's like
it's
she's got
the
so many senses, and that's just page one, folks. That's just page
but
one.
if you think about this, like, oh man, I wish I had my Kindle right here. But anyway, because I could pull it up, I could pull up the first part of it. But almost every first line that we remember,
Yeah.
just like super memorable,
Mm-hmm.
is about a character. A Prayer for
Mm-hmm.
Owen Meany, one of my favorite books, is basically the first line. The gist of it is Owen Meany is the reason that I'm a Christian today.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, and then it goes through this description, this vivid description of these things that are going to happen in the book. Like there are spoilers about
Mm-hmm.
this character in the first paragraph, but
Right.
it's so related to this character, you can't wait to meet this character and learn more about them. You're like, oh, what in the world is this guy talking about?
Right.
Right? But it's focused on a character. And this is why, so there is a place for plot-driven stories, but I would
Mm-hmm.
argue that even most plot-driven stories, the reason we love them is strong characters. Lord of the
Mm-hmm.
Rings is very plot-driven,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but who do we remember? Bilbo Baggins, Gandalf,
Frodo.
pick
Yeah. You
Frodo,
pick your
pick,
favorite. Mm-hmm.
pick your favorite, pick your poison, whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to remember characters. Twilight, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What's those two dudes' names anyway? Whatever the two guys that were,
In Twilight? You
yeah,
mean Edward and
Edward and
Jacob?
Jacob. Yeah, exactly. But like first thing, I don't love Twilight. It just came to mind because my daughter loves Twilight. And I saw her this weekend. We were talking about anyway, a story about a long time ago in Twilight. But anyway, it was related to
Twilight.
Twilight. But you think of like a lot of people immediately think of those two characters, and there was this whole
Mhm.
online, like you were on one side or the
Or
other
the other.
of those
Mhm.
characters online, right?
That was
And
probably the
why?
only thing that
The
came out of those books
characters.
that was actually impactful. Like as far as like that's probably why. It's because people could pick a side, you know.
Yes,
But people were doing people.
because they're characters, because
Mm-hmm.
the character, not because the writing was great. The writing was not great.
Mm-hmm.
Not because the story even was so great and so original. It was not. It was because there were these rivalries between these two guys, and teenage girls fell in love with one or the other of them.
Right.
And so you were either Team Jacob or Team Edward, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a whole franchise was born out of that, and arguably 50 Shades of Grey and that whole franchise came out of Twilight because it was Twilight fan fiction when it
It
started out.
yeah, I would say that
And that
probably you're
wasn't
right.
good writing either,
No.
but everybody knows who whatever Christian Grey is,
Yeah. Even people like
right?
me who never even watched it or
Who never
read the
even
book
watched
or
or read
nothing.
it, you because it's become a name that's known in our society, a name of a character
Mm-hmm.
in that book, and we know certain things about that character. Even if I walked into a convenience store this weekend because one of my assignments for my son's wedding, which is where we went this weekend, was to pick up 15 bags of ice on my way
Wow.
back to the
Okay.
venue, right? So
Okay.
you walk into a Maverick, you ask for 15 bags of ice, and the guy goes, "I'm selling so much ice they should call me Walter White." Now, immediately, him and I bonded over that reference to a character,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even people that were around us started chiming in,
Yep.
right? And started saying certain things about the show Breaking Bad and about Walter White
Mm-hmm.
over ice, right? And so we're relating over story, but we're relating over a character in that story.
Right.
Arguably, the rest of the series and the overall stuff doesn't matter as much as that character
Right.
because I'm like, but is it blue? And he does well, no, I can't do the line because then he would have to bleep it out. But
Bleep,
anyway,
bleep, bleep,
but
bleep, 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 bleep.
yeah, so he basically quotes a line from the show, which everybody in the place practically knew.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? And it's a line from the character who defines that character at a certain point in that show,
Right.
right? Super interesting that what relate to over those stories is the characters.
Yeah.
First lines that we remember relate to characters.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
oh,
it's like you said. I mean, even though Twilight, oh, I can't remember the author of that series anymore, but even though
Stephanie Meyer.
Stephanie Myers, thank you.
Yeah.
Even though she wasn't like that wasn't probably her best writing, I wouldn't say. I would say that her editors probably did her a disservice a little bit there. But really, in all honesty, she did do one thing well, and that was she did write sense with her senses. She
Hmm.
described visually, and I do recall her talking about the smell of Jacob's fur at one point. Um,
Hmm.
there, she did do a good job. She did a really good job helping us feel what Bella felt, the angst and the longing. She did do a good job there. So it's just interesting. It's like you said, it's character driven, but it was definitely emotional and sensory driven. And
Hmm.
so I like the idea of when an author can pick up on that. But there's a good rule of thumb here as far as like when to use certain senses. So
Hmm.
I'm a kind of a paranormal freak, and I love these videos that where people like post, oh my gosh, there's a ghost in my house, and they do this like really scary, and I most of the time it's just bogus, right? It's just garbage, but it's just people being trying to scare you while you're watching this video, right? There was the best ones, the scariest, most like chill up your spine videos are the ones where you have no sight of what's happening. You cannot see anything, but you can hear something. Or
Hmm.
and so there's a sound, and that's usually like, and there usually that sound is accompanied by silence in every other aspect. So there's just
Mm-hmm.
the sound and nothing else. When I read horror and I read a good scary thriller, and you are creating tension and you are trying to create a moment where the reader is in a heightened state of like fear and tension, you want to create that almost that fugue state, like you said, just kind of like where everything
Mm-hmm.
else in the world disappears and they're listening for that sound that you are about to give them. And you want to prolong that as long as you can
Oh,
before giving them the snap or the twig snap or the rustle of the clothing, or the
yeah.
click of a light. um
Things that go bump in the night. I mean, think about
that's
the
the
things
best
that,
stuff.
so like in horror, you'll have a feeling,
Yeah,
like a bad feeling or whatever, and the lights go out,
yeah,
and then you hear the thump in the night, right?
yeah. or like
Well,
or
part
like
of
you're in the
that
woods
is
and all the nature sounds go
stop.
away. Yeah, you're
And
like,
it's one of those things where, like, sometimes the absence of sound or the absence of visual is what makes things worse,
yeah.
because now you're robbed of that.
Mm-hmm.
This is one book that I'm like, I would love to write, and I still like I have an outline for it. I've thought about it, but I just haven't written it yet. And it's called Never Heard, and it's about a girl who is deaf.
Jeff, i
So
I
you
think you've
have to
told me
take the
about this before.
senses, yeah. So you have to take the audio senses, like at least in a large part, out of the book when it's from her point of view.
Yeah.
Because part of then you realize what's missing is she sees lips move and makes an interpretation of that, but she does not hear the sound.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a big explosion, she feels the shockwave, but she does not hear it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So sometimes taking one of those senses away is all the light we cannot see.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All the light we cannot see is another one where when
The
you take
quiet
one of those
place.
senses away, it really makes your, like, it heightens the tension because we rely so heavily on those senses. If you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, like in horror, you'll smell the sulfur, right?
Mm-hmm. Or
The
smell
sulfur
the blood
smell,
and thrillers.
or smell the blood, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then the lights go out or something like that happens, and you're suddenly deprived of one of those senses. Boom, it's gone. And then you hear something, boom, thump in the night. Or you hear nothing, but you see a flash. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, so but if you think about all of those things that we talk about, who experiences things through their senses?
Mm-hmm. All of us.
People.
Yeah.
People do,
Mm-hmm.
not a plot point. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like what you're talking about. Like I've heard all the argument. There's a huge group on Facebook online that argues about the Wheel of Time thing, the whole thing about
Mm-hmm.
whether how bad it is or what people like about it. And one of the arguments people have all the time is about the characters. Oh, they totally messed up this character. He would not ever act that way. Or they totally skipped this part of that character. And that's not, and it all comes back to that the all the sensory writing we talk about is all character driven.
Yeah.
Now, should there be plot points? Yes, there should. But over and over again, we have seen writers write things that are character driven and extremely well done and extremely popular that are missing some plot points, but the characters carry it through. I would argue Station 11, so
Mm.
sci-fi, right? Is the plot good? I'm not sure. I'm not sure it even has a solid plot. Did I enjoy it though? Oh, yeah. The characters are amazing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? The characters drive that entire story. And
You
if you
know,
haven't seen it yet, go watch it
I
and
would even
you
I
know what
would
I'm talking about.
even challenge anyone to a I guess debate on the the storytelling, sorry, the storytelling capability of Tolkien. Um, really, because it's, if you remove the character aspect of it, because it is a character driven plot, it is not, it is
Hmm.
not. And the only reason people like, I mean, it is an outdated kind of storytelling um method, because
Hmm.
of the, fantasy is just really, I mean, thick, right? But he does tend to go a little bit more detailed into the description of the world than I would say that current fantasy writers do. But in terms of like the landscaping and like, you know what I mean? And he wrote
Hmm.
poetry and language, and a lot of fantasy authors don't go that deep in it anymore. But it is very much character driven. I would say that Ernest Hemingway, he was very simplistic. If you read anything of Ernest Hemingway, you will
Hmm.
see it is the most simple sentence structure you'll ever study in a writer. But it's basically, he went to the car. He put the car in drive. He left the, I mean, it is like noun, verb, adjective. Now, it's just very blah, 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 dry. What's really interesting though is one of my favorite stories of Ernest Hemingway's is actually a short story that he wrote about I think it's the woman. She murders her husband on a safari.
Mm.
And it's a really interesting story. But anyway, while you're in Africa, you can hear the sounds of the animals. They're on a lion hunt, and she kills him while they're, and it like was an accident because she killed him while she was aiming at the lion, supposedly, but she did it on purpose, like she murdered him.
Oh,
But
right, right.
yeah, it was really kind of an interesting story. um he did that, and you read that story very much from her perspective, and or actually no, I don't think it's from her perspective, but it's been a while since I read it, but it is character driven, like you said. And I remember the way I felt and what I heard in that story. I could remember the sounds of the safari. I could hear the animals and the
Hmm.
lion roar and like all of that. It's crazy. Um, but in high tension, danger situations, it's usually the sound that you're going to focus on. What do you think it is in romance and intimacy?
Oh, romance and intimacy. First of all, there's like a lot of times when someone is in that falling in love scene, we they feel something. Now, it may not be like a physical feel,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of times it is. It's a physical feeling, a physical touch. Something about their touch, their skin, if you think about it. And then you hear something, a gasp of breath, whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
and then visual, obviously.
I would
And I mean,
say,
we could go down that
I
road, but
think
also
smell and
smell,
taste. Yeah.
smell, because so smell and taste comes a lot more into this. And if you think about,
Mm-hmm.
well, not to go too far down the erotica road without
Getting
going
us
too far down
censored.
the erotica road, and getting us censored, but smell and taste play a huge role in sexual fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
especially, and this is a hint for you guys that are trying to write romance and you're not having much success. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Women, it's not about the visual nearly as much as it is about the other senses.
It isn't.
So
It is.
just if you think that it is, first
You're
of all,
going
you're
down the wrong
wrong.
road.
And second of all, okay, just another hint here. If you're writing genre fiction, 70% of your readers to 80% of your readers are women,
Yep.
regardless of what genre you're
Mm-hmm.
writing.
Yep.
Okay. So if you're writing any kind of a love scene, any kind of a sex scene in any of those genres, understand that the visual is not your primary, even though that's your default as a guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's not the primary. With
Mm-hmm.
women especially, it's the touch, the feeling of the touch,
Mm-hmm.
and the smell and the
Ellen,
taste.
it is smell is probably one of my strongest memory senses, my strongest everything. I mean, it's everything.
Hmm.
So I was laughing. I have a follow guy on Instagram that makes me laugh. He's so funny. He's always scared of spiders. If you I don't know if you guys know his name, write him in the comments, because he's always like this big buff dude, and he just screams like a girl whenever he encounters spiders. But anyway, um he did a funny reel the other day where he was like trying to seduce his wife, and it was like that he was like getting into her face and like kind of giving her a look, and she goes, your breath stinks, go brush your teeth. And I was laughing because I was like, yeah, I've had that moment where I'm like, ew, like, like
Yeah.
no. And then, but one of my favorite memories, it's funny, my husband when we were dating, he used to drive a Subaru Brat, a brown one. If you know what that was, if you know what that is, oh my gosh, it's so funny. But what's funny about it was old when we were they're old anyway, but they were old when we were
Yeah.
old, or when we were young. Anyway, and then he loved to listen to AC/DC. So he had a tape deck for you young kids. They were these square things that you put in and you can listen to music. So he had a tape deck of AC/DC, and he threw the tape deck in, and um I think it still is Thunderstruck is the one, and then there's another one, not Hell's Bells, but there's another one. um I can't remember. Maybe it's Back in Black. It's no, that's the wrong intro. Anyway, there's an intro, but Thunderstruck is one of them. And I'm not kidding. Whenever that song comes on the radio, no matter when it is, I smell that Subaru Brat. I can smell it. I remember the smell of it so strongly and vividly that the song triggers the smell. It is the wildest thing in the world, but it is a strong sense. So using your
Hmm.
sense and your taste, it's one taste and smell is, I would go to the mattresses on this debate. I would say that those are probably your strongest memory senses. So if to
Hmm.
use those in a book and actually have people smell and taste what you're trying to share with them through a character's eyes, you are going to, in a way, create a bond and a
Hmm.
memory connection with that character.
The one of the things is memory, because so genre fiction, a lot of genre fiction tends to be fairly forgettable. Like you may have read all of the Jack Reacher series, and you probably, by the name of the book, don't necessarily remember exactly what happened in
That
that
makes
particular
sense. Yeah,
book,
that makes sense.
right? Because it's fairly forgettable, and it's meant to be. It's just action, you know, adventure type stuff. But we remember some things about Jack Reacher, right, as a character and who he is. But for the most part, the stories themselves are pretty forgettable. However, there are those horror stories and those things that you've read that you just can't ever forget the story.
Yeah,
And a part of that is because there's the addition of those senses. Now, as a genre fiction writer, the more you can add those things in,
better.
the more people will become immersed in your stories and absolutely love your stories,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so this is one of those things that you just like, we as authors need to understand how the ways that we can reach our readers. Now, I'm going to segue to another topic that I've noticed with the thing that AI is really good at and the things that it's not.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things it's pretty good at is following a story structure and giving you an outline or some idea, a series of ideas for a story, right? But generally, that is a plot,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily a character arc. Now, you can, with the right prompting, and nobody come at me here because I know with the right prompting, you can get a character arc out of AI as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that it's not always as genuine as it could be. And here's why. We as humans are inconsistent.
That's true.
And AI likes predictability and consistency.
Mm-hmm.
The best plots have twists in them that are as Brandon Sanderson calls it, a predictable or a inevitable but not predictable outcome.
Right.
Right? It's the thing that you know it's going to happen, but it's not predictable until it happens, and you go, "Oh,
Oh
I
yeah.
should have known that was coming. That was going to happen." And
Yeah.
that's not something that AI is generally going to come up with.
It's not good
And the
at it.
reason is because humanity is unpredictable,
Mm-hmm.
right? We do things that are outside of the pattern and outside. So the best plots that we remember the most are the ones that follow a formula only to a certain point. And then something happens and we go, oh, formula out the window. I was not expecting that at all.
Yep.
Right? Now, there are some genres where predictability is what it's all about.
Right.
Right? But that is not, those are those forgettable books, right? Jack Reacher is a pretty predictable formula
Yeah.
for most of his books. And this is why you don't remember the plot, is there wasn't some sudden twist in the middle that you went, oh my God, Jack Reacher almost died or whatever. Like, and I was not expecting that to happen at all. Or he survived a horrific injury and suddenly just kept going anyway. Predictable. We expected that from an action hero, right? We've
You
come
know
to
what?
expect certain things,
I think
right?
you've hit on something. So if you haven't seen Superman yet and you don't want the spoiler, I'm not going to give all spoilers, but I will say this about this. So if you don't want to hear anything about Superman, pause for the next few seconds. One of
Fast
the
forward for
Yeah, yeah.
two
One of the
minutes.
things that I
Yeah.
absolutely loved about the latest Superman movie was that very thing where it's like you knew that Superman's going to win, right? Like that's Superman's going to win. But one of the things that was different about this Superman movie is he got hurt. He wasn't
Hmm.
invincible. When the bullets, like you know what I mean? Like it was like there, it was when he took a hit, like it wasn't
Hmm.
like he got hit with a guy, got right back up, dusted himself off, and goes back to the fight. Like it was like it took a minute. Like he was,
Hmm.
wait, I need a second. You know, I think that that's probably one of the reasons why this Superman is so much more or resonates more with its audience right now. My dog, sorry. It resonates more with the audience right now because they're feeling, Sydney, you're going to have to mute
Hmm.
these dogs out. They're feeling more related or relatable
Hmm.
to, or Superman's feeling more relatable to them. It's quite a bit
Hmm.
more, it feels more impactful.
Well, right. It's about the humanity because the truth is, we as people get hurt even if we get back up. Even if it sometimes looks to the outside to people like, even emotionally or whatever, like as if we dusted ourselves off and just landed back on our feet and everything was fine. Right. And I mean, I've had these experiences in real life where people like you just tend to, in your career and everything, like you land on your feet. Right. Yes, that is true most of the time. But sometimes that landing on my feet, if there's some bruises, right? There's some stuff that happens in relationship and in other things that leave bruises, that leaves a mark. Right. And you, like, yeah, having that humanity as a part of Superman, because that's one of the things, even in the older Supermans, when somebody comes up with some kryptonite, Superman gets hurt. He's vulnerable.
Right.
But it's almost better to see him vulnerable in more situations than that
Yeah.
and say, yeah, there's a difference between, when a cop takes a shot in a bulletproof vest, it
It
still leaves a
hurts.
bruise.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't die because the bullet doesn't enter his body and all that kind of stuff,
But
but it still
it can
hurts.
bruise a rib if it's a big enough caliper, and you can
Oh,
still puncture a
it can
lung.
leave a big old bruise
Yeah.
on
You
your
could
chest
do
everywhere.
all
I
kinds
mean,
of damage.
it's body armor is not just like regular armor when you're in a sword fight too, just because the sword doesn't penetrate the armor doesn't mean that getting hit with a huge broadsword doesn't
It
hurt.
doesn't hurt. I know. Chainmail
You know
just
what I
stopped
mean?
the
So
blade from coming through you.
there's a lot of times when, as writers, we could have more impactful moments.
Really?
In fact, a guy that we're talking about a nonfiction book, one of the impact of the moments in that book and what makes it so amazing and so real is that it's a book that talks about failure,
Hmm.
right? And says failure happens and it's actually okay.
It's okay.
Instead of one of those books that says, rah, rah, go you, and if you follow my formula, you'll never, ever get hurt again and have any problems. It's like, come on, dude, that's just not reality, right?
Yeah, that doesn't
And
work.
so, books that embrace stories that embrace that fact of, because the most important thing, nonfiction book, fiction book, whatever, is the story
Right. It is about the
that's
story.
behind it.
Hmm.
It's the story. It's not about anything else.
Right.
And anybody that tries to make it about something else, the problem is your book isn't going to succeed,
No.
right? Because that's the way we relate to things is through stories, right? So the stories that you tell in books, in nonfiction books especially, are the things that help people relate to you and who you are,
Right.
right? That's it.
Right.
See, that's it. But anyway, okay.
So, yeah. So let's talk
Yeah.
about like the way, because this is one of those things that I know a lot of authors, they try to embrace, they try to figure out what this show don't tell thing means. And I think people get pretty close to it. Experienced authors get better at it, but it does seem to still be a kind of a really difficult thing for people to understand. So let's go through what that is. When people say show don't tell, when an author or an editor or a beta reader or somebody says to you, show don't tell, what they're meaning is that in a scene, when you've got a character, um, maybe acting out a scene, and say this, the character, let's just do a character eating breakfast. So a show, no, let's do a tell first. A tell kind of story would be Rebecca got up in the morning and she went outside of her bedroom and she went downstairs and she sat at a table and she poured herself a bowl of Lucky Charms. And she pulled the milk out of the fridge, poured the milk into the bowl, and she sat down and began to eat it with a spoon. Now, that is a very much show scene, right?
Tell,
That's, oh, yeah,
tell scene.
tell. That's what I mean. Tell. Sorry, tell. The difference between a tell and a show would be Rebecca lazily opened her eyes and looked around her room, and she peeled herself from her covers, knowing that she had to go to work. And she put her feet on the cold floor, and they sprung right back up, went back under the covers because the floor was so cold she couldn't handle it. And she decided she had to get up. The urge to get up was stronger than it was to stay in bed. She had to get out of bed. This was her first day at her new job. So she puts her feet on the cold floor and slides them across the floor, hoping that the friction would cause warmth as she walked her way, shuffled her way to the kitchen. And she could hear her dog pitter patter behind her as she's walking to the kitchen. He's going to obviously want some food. She grabbed the Lucky Charms out of the pantry and she sniffed them to see if they were stale, and she could smell the sweetness of the marshmallows, and she decided, okay, I think these are okay. So she poured them into her bowl, and each hard piece of cereal tinkled as tinked the side of the bowl as it fell into the bowl. And she looked at that bowl just dreading eating Lucky Charms. She wished it was eggs and bacon. She wished she could smell her mother making her breakfast right now. That eggs and bacon every Saturday morning was just heaven sent, but she hasn't seen her mom for years. So she opens the fridge and she reaches into the cold fridge and grabs the cold carton of milk. And she again unscrews it and sniffs to see if the milk is still fresh. There's only a vague hint of sourness to it, so she figures it's good. She checks the expiration date just to make sure. And then she pours it and it sloshes into the bowl, spilling a little bit on the counter. That's so much different than what I told you the first time. You know,
Yeah.
that's a
And
show.
it's, even though it's a bit protracted for
Mm-hmm.
a story like that, it still is better. And telling has its place. I mean, trust me. Okay. So if she goes and uses the bathroom in between there, we don't need the details. Okay.
We
Because
don't
there's
need the
some
details of
details
everything. Yeah.
we don't need to know, or even the details of everything that Stacy
We,
said. But I mean, you could simply be like, um, her feet hit the cold floor, and as soon as they did, she realized she really had to get up because she had to pee. So she put on her slippers
yeah.
and went in the bathroom and took care, right? And then she shuffled downstairs, sniffed the Lucky Charms, realized they were
There's,
still going to be magically delicious. You know
right.
what I mean? Like there's all
Yeah.
kinds of things
But
that
there's
you
all
can
kinds of
throw
things.
in there,
But you could
but
you could
it's
use
all
that.
senses.
Yeah, you
It's
could use
all
that as the no.
senses.
I had a client recently tell me, oh, I don't know when to put in these backstories. Like, how do I put in the backstory? Like, I literally just threw a backstory in this story about this girl pouring her cereal.
Hmm.
She hadn't seen her mother in years and she wished she could make her breakfast.
Yeah, and
Like
it even like
that just drops
if
a
I
hint,
was
right?
coaching an author, I would tell them it would almost be even better for the story, either if she's estranged from her mother, so she's
Mhm.
going to see her again,
Yeah.
or if her mother has died
Yeah. We don't
recently.
know right now, do
And
we?
part of the reason she's starting a new job is, and it could even be something, your character development could be amazing by her walking into the kitchen, walking into her mother's kitchen.
Yeah.
So she's come home because her mother has passed away. She's sleeping in her old room.
But you
She
can
comes
reveal that.
downstairs to the familiar kitchen
Yeah.
that's her mother's kitchen, and rather than bacon and eggs, she
She's
smells
pouring.
Lucky Charms,
Yeah.
puts
Right.
them in a bowl because even though her mom wanted her to and tried really hard, she never learned to cook.
Yep.
Right? So she has regrets. She has a past about her mother.
Mm-hmm.
The reason she's got a new job and she's in an unfamiliar place is because her mother has passed away.
Yeah, but the
And she's
beautiful
here to
thing
take
is
care of those
you
things,
don't even
right?
have to reveal all that right then and there. You know what I mean? Like
Nope.
this is all stuff that comes out. You can come out
And some of it
later,
we assume. We
right?
assume that, like, when she walks into
Mm-hmm.
her mother's kitchen and she wishes her mother was still here to make her bacon and eggs, all of a sudden you realize her mother is gone, either gone somehow or perhaps she has passed away.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the morning of the funeral. And by the end of this chapter, we've learned that this girl's mother is dead, that she misses her, but that she didn't learn everything from her that she wishes she had.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's gone and she has to take care of her estate, and she started this new job. And maybe when she goes and grabs a coffee at the local coffee shop, she sees some guy that she knew from high school, and here we've started a Hallmark movie,
Yeah.
right? I mean, but I mean,
But
look at
you
all the things that make those movies watchable, even
mm-hmm.
though the plots are so predictable, is those little character traits that
Yeah.
we are being shown, not told. Now, that's
Yeah.
easier to do in a movie than it is in a book, but at the same time, you think of your book like a camera point of view, and what your character sees, hears, smells, tastes, and feels. Those are the things you want to convey to the reader. Because saying she walked downstairs to the kitchen doesn't have near the impact of
She
she
shuffled.
she shuffled down the stairs in her slippers, careful not to fall because they were hardwood stairs, didn't have any runners on them,
Yeah, or something.
right?
Yeah.
And suddenly there's a little bit of tension that's added to that. Oh, she could fall. And maybe that's going to play a role later because she is going to fall.
Yeah. Or
And so
maybe that's how her mom died as she fell down the
yeah.
stairs.
So we've laid a hint, right? We laid a hint about these smooth stairs, right? So you've started doing all these little things in just a few sentences, but by showing us what it is for her to walk down the stairs, not telling us. Now, if the stairs play no role later, Or
Don't
if
make a
the
big deal
breakfast
about it.
really isn't that
Yeah.
important, then don't make it really important.
Don't
Hang a
make a
bell
big
on the
deal.
things that are really important, right?
There was a famous,
But yeah,
was it a famous writer? I don't know. It feels like this is something that's been around the block a few times, but basically if you describe a gun in the room, then you better use the gun.
if there's a gun, Chekhov's gun. If there's a gun on the
Yeah.
mantle,
If there's
if
gun
there's a
on the
gun on the
mantle.
mantle, somebody needs to use it.
Right. So
So
don't just,
don't point things out
yeah, that
that
don't matter.
don't matter,
You know, I,
right?
one of the worst show don't tell examples I can give you is I was trying to teach this to an author, and sometimes it takes some practice, but the show don't tell went a little extra, and he came back. I was trying to get him to understand that the chapter was too long because he kept droning on about stuff that didn't matter, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one of the things that he did is he had the the guy got up, he walked out of the room, he turned the doorknob, he opened the door, he went out the door, and he closed the door. And I'm like, we
Hmm.
all know how to open and close a door. Like, couldn't you just say he left? Like, what? Why did we go through this
Yeah.
long?
He walked out, closing the door behind him.
Yeah, like, why did we have to have this whole? He opened the door, he turned the doorknob, he opened the door. Like, why did we have to do
Now,
that?
if the method of opening and closing the door or the method of locking the door
Or
plays a
if you're
role
trying to
later in the
create,
story,
yeah, or if you're trying to create tension with the sound, that's different. But it was not this thing. So again, I want you to, like, every time you're sitting down to write a scene, ask yourself, is there something in this scene that, well, every scene that you write needs to have um, it needs to have character motivation and or something that's moving the character toward or away from the 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 ending of your story, your result, right? The end,
hmm
the resolution, right? So if you're trying to get to this resolution or climax, I always say right to the climax and then resolve it. But if you're trying to get that character to that point and you've got this ending that you've got, and they've got to get to this ending, ask yourself, is this scene getting them closer or farther away? If it's getting them farther away, you know where you're at in the story, right? If it's getting you
hmm
farther away from the ending, then okay, this is the tension that needs to move me closer to the climax. But it's got to have a point. If there's absolutely no direction, it has nothing to do with anything in the plot, and it's actually driving, it doesn't take your character anywhere. If it's not moving anything, if you took it out, is anyone going to miss it? And if that answer is yes or no, if it's no, that nobody's going to miss it, then there's no point. And if
hmm
you are so set on having that scene, then you better put something in it that's going to make that character go
give it a
toward,
point.
yeah, give it a
Yeah.
point.
Oh,
So
excuse me. One of the
you're,
things is that I always talk about is how each scene should have a goal, motivation, and conflict, just
yeah,
like your overall story
and it
does.
has to move
If there's no
forward.
conflict in your scene, it probably doesn't belong there. And so you're like conflict every time. I'm like, conflict doesn't mean a fist fight. Conflict means some kind of
It
tension,
has to move
right?
it has to move the character towards that change that you're creating.
Right. And your character needs to have some kind of a motive for what they're doing in that scene. I see this all the time, and that writers will put it in there. I'm like, why did you put that in there? Well, that's what has to happen at this point in the plot. No, no, that's not a reason for putting it in there. Your character needs to have a motive for what they're doing in that scene. And they
Yeah.
also need to have a short goal, like a short-sighted goal, like they want to accomplish something by the end of that scene. Now, whether they accomplish it or not determines what kind of a scene it is, right?
Yeah.
But they need to have a goal, something in mind that they're doing in that scene or that
If
chapter.
if I'm telling you,
Otherwise, why
yeah.
are they there? Why are
If
they
you
doing
guys
it?
if you guys are even studying structure, study, and on this is foreign to you, go study this. But there are 3 act and 5 act structures that you should implement when you're writing a book. And the reason is because at certain points in the story, there's a natural order of timing that should happen. And it's where these certain plot points happen to kind of move the story forward. if you're not hitting those marks with your scenes and they're just filling space, then you're going to lose your reader. And those are usually the points when the reader's going to put the book down, and putting the book
Hmm.
down is death. So when you're in a scene, not only are you asking yourself, where's this character going? What's the motivation or the conflict or whatever that's moving them closer or farther away from their end game? But then in that scene, ask yourself, what are they feeling, thinking? Um, what are they seeing? What are they hearing? What are the things that are gonna make my reader see this and feel this, what this character is feeling and thinking and seeing at this moment? Um,
Right.
and you can use your character's point of view and their emotions to kind of help you shape those senses or those sensory experiences.
Hmm.
So what, if you could ask yourself, what's this character feeling? And I know all you authors out there are writing about yourselves, every single one of you. So whenever you're writing a character and you're like, this is me when I was, and it's always like that. But if that's the case, then what you're feeling and thinking and hearing. Write that down. Write that down. And if
Hmm.
you need help shaping it, then talk to a writing coach that can help you shape it. But
Hmm.
really, if you are really die hard wanting to know how to write that, go sit down under a tree or sit in that environment that you are trying to write, and jot down those things that you feel and hear, and then you can make it
Hmm.
a flowery language and decide how you want that to all kind of shape up. But in all honesty, people, we're all human and we all experience things that are relatable. We all know what, sour milk tastes or smells like. We like a
Yeah.
lot of us know what sour, like, and there's more of us that know what sour milk smells like than any than don't know what it smells like. um
Right.
we all know what cigarettes smell like, for the most part. We've
For
all
the
kind
most
of
part.
encountered a
Well,
smoker at one point or another.
but let
So
me let me throw a little bit of a twist in here in that. Well, first of all, a couple different recommendations. One of them is to get the emotion thesaurus so that you
oh
understand
yeah,
how
I love
body
that book. Here, I'll
language
show you.
relates to how people feel. Yeah, I've got it on my Remarkable.
Yep.
So it's searchable. It's super useful to
There's
have.
she's written a bunch of these though.
Yes,
uh
there's a ton of them. So not just the emotion thesaurus, there are several editions, also other things that talk about body language. Um,
yeah,
I
they're
have
really
almost
good.
all of
These are
them.
really
I
good.
could,
These are really good. These are really
yes,
good.
super, super good. Angela Ackerman. If you don't follow her around. She does some great stuff. Okay, that's one thing. But the other thing is don't get caught up too much on a lot of the stuff in the drafting process.
No, yeah,
Right? The
no.
first draft process, the whole idea is to get it drafted. In the revision process, because you should have a revision process of your own before an editor sees this.
Please do that.
Okay.
It's a
You can
waste of
have your
money.
critique group look at
Hmm.
it, beta readers look at it, but the first person who looks at it when you're done with the draft should be you. And you should be adding these sensory things. Because I looked at one of my drafts of one of my short stories the other day, and I had to make some major revisions. And the reason was I was doing a lot of telling
Hmm.
about this one part of the story because I mean, essentially, I was being lazy and going, okay, I just want to get the story out there, right?
Hmm.
But I was doing a lot of telling, right? And I'm like, that's not going to fly with this particular story because I need that tension. I need people to be feeling what this guy is feeling, right?
Hmm.
In order for this to work. So I have to go back and make some revisions. You should be the first pass that goes back and does that
Hmm.
and says, what do I want people to feel at the end of the scene, and then use language that drives them towards feeling that
One of the
and
tips that I've
relating to
got
your
here
character.
is that
Yeah.
you can use your five senses. It's like you said, you can use the five senses, but you hit on something just there that was like more important. That is to make those five senses impact the character. You're not
Hmm.
if you're just saying she smelled the roses and they smelled sweet, you're still telling. You're not
Hmm.
really showing.
Yes.
So you have to say like something. something like the rose's scent lingered in the heavy air, and it reminded Rebecca of her grandmother's old perfume, like it needs to, I mean,
Yeah.
and that's kind of a really
Well, or things
rudimentary
like
example, but you know what I mean?
that, things like he woke up a little bit with the anticipation when he smelled the coffee.
Yeah.
We know coffee wakes us up. We know it has caffeine. We know a lot of people use it as their first crutch in the morning to pry themselves
Or
out of
maybe
bed
it filled him
and
with
up and being
dread
functional.
because he knew if he drunk that coffee, he was going to have to go to work.
Or he'd be up all night,
Yeah, or he'd be up
right?
on, yeah.
Or he's getting old and it means he's going to have to pee all day if he drinks too much of that coffee, or whatever the case may be.
Whatever the
But you know what
case
I
may
mean?
be.
Like you can relate that to the character. So the smell of the coffee means something,
Right.
because the smell of coffee means something to all of us. The smell of cigarettes means different things to different people.
Hmm.
Someone smelling cigarettes could smell cigarettes and regret having quit.
Yeah, there's been some
Or
good
someone
character
could
stuff
smell
that like that.
cigarettes and it could remind them of their abusive father.
Yeah.
Two completely different reactions to the same smell, but how it impacts the character is what
Hmm.
makes that smell or that sense important,
Yeah.
or how it makes the reader feel. How does it make the reader feel when the woods go dead quiet?
Yeah.
They're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And your character also goes, uh-oh.
Right.
Right? Everybody goes, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Right? And that's exactly the reaction you want, is you want them to go, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
And then for the love of all that's holy, don't disappoint them. Make them a promise and then keep it.
Yeah, keep it.
But I mean, the point is that there's a big difference between saying that the woods fell silent and saying that the chirp of the birds cut off
Yeah.
and even the breeze stopped rustling the leaves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
suddenly you feel it, right? Because I feel that being there, right? So the more descriptive you are, but concise descriptions, exactly what
Concise.
Stacey was
Yeah.
talking
Be
about too.
concise.
Don't go so far in it that you're telling us every step that the guy makes. And by the
No.
way, one of Troy's pet peeves, people don't start walking, they walk
Oh
or
my
they
gosh.
don't.
Yeah.
If
They
you
don't
take a
start
step,
talking.
you're
They talk.
walking. They don't start talking, they talk. There's
Everybody.
very few things that people start. They either do them or they don't.
Yeah.
I'll tell people, what does it look like when you start moving? Oh, you're moving, right? You didn't start moving, you
You
are
know,
moving,
we're doing
you
these
know?
we're doing these personal statements, right, for the USMLE season, and that is something that I'm always deleting on these personal statements is I started studying. I'm like, no, you studied. You didn't
You
start
studied. You
studying.
didn't
You
start studying
studied, or I
unless you
started
started
working.
and then stopped.
Yeah. I
You could
started
start studying and then stop.
I started working at,
Yeah.
at the Mayo Clinic. No, you worked at the Mayo Clinic. Like it's just
Yeah.
funny. Um, but yeah, another tip is to make the setting the character. Um,
Oh,
you can make a
yes.
setting, and you do this with metaphors. You could say you know, the wind clawed at his skin and he had to pull his collar up to keep it from feeling like it was scratching at his neck. Things like that. I mean, the water that comes to my eyes every time a cold wind blows. I mean, it's just like it immediately fills
Hmm.
my eyes. But so I always like fight with the wind. My best friend hates the wind. It makes her ears hurt. So the wind is her enemy. And literally when it's windy, it is a character in her story. She is
Hmm.
angry with the wind. Um go ahead and write scenes as characters. I mean, it's okay by using these metaphors. Again, you increase the senses and you increase the tension, or you can soften the tension. You can create a fanciful feeling or a feeling of peace.
Hmm.
um but go ahead and make the setting a character. A really good example, the market scent was a war, spices battling the stench of fish. Oh, good,
Hmm.
good.
Yeah. It's really good stuff.
Yeah.
That's so true, because even when we're talking about the things like your character walking along and the woods feeling silent, the woods have become a character now, not intentionally,
No.
not because the woods have suddenly told everybody, "Shh, we're
Shh.
going to mess with this dude." No,
That'd be
that's not
funny
what's
though.
happening. But it would be. That'd be a great comedy, right? But settings usually, generally, unless you're in a fantasy or something like that, are not doing something intentionally.
No, no.
But they are, like the wind blowing, right? I went to Idaho Falls this weekend, where
Oh
my
my
son got
gosh.
married, and
Wind.
the wind,
The
oh my
wind.
goodness. We got out of the truck at Walmart, and I'm like, oh, this is
The
why I don't live in Idaho Falls,
the wind
right?
in eastern Idaho, folks. If you don't
It's just
know, you don't
crazy.
know. But the wind, if you know, you know. The wind on that side of
Yeah,
the
if you
state.
it's
Oh,
just it's like North Dakota. It's like, anyway, it's like any
awful.
high plains area, right?
Those
And but
dang
anyway, the
sawtooth
the point of
mountains.
the thing is, though, that the wind blowing in Idaho Falls was not the wind intentionally telling me, don't move here. This is why you don't like it here. The wind is just something that's happening. Now, did it have that effect on me? Oh
Yes.
yeah. I mean, and there's plenty of other reasons I don't live in Idaho Falls anymore. I just tell people it's a great place to be from. However, um, it's it, the wind is just one of those things that is part of the weather there, and the weather there is crazy at
It's
times,
it's
right? And
brutal in the
so it just
winter.
reminds you that, oh, yes, weather is a factor
It
here,
is. It
but the
affects
weather does
mood.
not have any intent.
No.
But
But
it has impact. It has
houses are like
impact on the
this.
characters.
Houses are
Yep,
like this.
houses.
Um,
Hmm.
I don't know,
Mother Nature,
Mother
a
Nature
lot. Mother
always.
Nature, man versus nature is one of the most common themes in
Hmm.
books.
Hmm.
And but when you realize nature as an antagonist is not an intentional antagonist.
Hmm.
Nature is just being nature. It's our humanness to go out into nature and try to fight against what is happening anyway that
Oh,
makes it our antagonist.
it's kind of like this. People do this with their dogs a lot. They'll put their own emotions and feelings and they'll put them on their dogs. So
Hmm.
my dogs, we took them to home to Lowe's today. We took them to Lowe's and I put them in the carts because when they have a barrier around them, they feel a little less territorial. They're like, oh, I'm in,
Hmm.
this is my territory. I don't have to be, and I have mini schnauzers. So just know they're just noisy. But while the entire time we're there, they shake and they whine. They're just like so full of anxiety. And the whole time I'm just looking at them like, what the hell is wrong with you two dogs? And I know people will always look at them and go, oh, they're so scared. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're pent up full of energy. They want to attack you, but they're also know they're little dogs. So they can't. So
Yep.
they feel restrained right now and they're full of energy because they're like, so they're not scared, but that's the thing. It's so funny. People, oh, look, they're so scared. No, they're not scared. We put emotions on our dogs. Sometimes if we feel guilty, like,
Hmm.
we oh, you're sad because I didn't give you your treat today. That's a dog. They don't care, but
Yeah.
it's like, you know what I mean? Like that's what we do. You can do that with nature and settings and stuff. And that's what, like that it's a good mirror for how your characters are feeling. I love doing this as a device, a literary device is, showing like fear, dread, love, whatever, based on the verbs and the nouns and adjectives you use to describe the area and the room that they're in, or the
Hmm.
way that they see the reactions from other people. It's a good mirror for you to kind of show and build that feeling of or that tone that you want to set for that scene. um
Hmm.
there is a good way
Absolutely.
also there is something that Troy's advice kind of shines through on this as well about dialects and accents and things like this. It's using it like salt. You kind of want to do that
Hmm.
with this kind of thing too. You don't want to, like Troy and I were saying earlier, you don't want to overdo this because
Hmm.
you can do too much. So if you're
Oh yeah.
overdoing it, you tend to lose people too, because then you go into the Tolkien world and now you're describing every leaf on the tree.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
which we don't care about.
we don't
Yeah,
care.
hang a bell on things and plant a flag on things that are actually important to the character and to the story. If
Right,
it's not
right.
important to one of those two things, please just give us a brief description and move on.
Yeah,
Um,
just
and
calm
if a
down.
person is talking in first person, it can be very difficult to describe them.
Right.
Do not fall into the trap of using a mirror,
No, that's
and having them
no.
describe themselves because that's not the way people think.
Also, also guys, this is the other thing. I mean, describing somebody when you first encounter them is actually quite overdone. I think that it's actually a very poor way to describe somebody. Do it in little pieces, do it as you go. If somebody's got a gruff voice, do it in their dialogue later. Like, you don't have to say Troy walked into the room and he's got a really deep voice, and then like, and he's got this hair that when he puts his fingers through it, it makes it go look like he's like a mad
Yeah,
scientist, and like you don't like,
exactly,
did
which
he
is
run
true.
his fingers through the hair at that moment? No, you're just describing him, like, no, you don't do that. You do that through the character development, through the story
And
as
through
things
what they're
happen.
doing, don't
Yeah.
tell me he has a gruff voice.
Yeah.
Allow him to speak
And
and have
then
someone react to the
to
gruff
the
voice
gruffness of yeah.
because the gruffness of his voice has an impact on the character,
Right.
the other character that we're seeing this through.
Right.
Um, that type of thing.
Right.
Um, there's all kinds of devices that you can use to do this. The main point is, first of all, is to learn how to describe things. They just learn how to describe things, and part of that may be just practicing describing things. Like Stacy said, go out and sit under a tree, go to a bar and describe the
Oh
scene
yeah,
in
that would
that
be a good
bar.
one.
Go to a coffee shop, describe the scene in that coffee shop
People
and describe
watch.
the people that you see,
Take a minute.
right? Airport, go to the airport and
Hmm.
watch how people react to different things, what things make them nervous, how people react to security, whether they react with frustration and anger, or whether they react with nervousness, or whether they react with kind of resigned, just resignation of, oh, I have to
Hmm.
take my shoes off again, or which we don't have to do anymore, whatever, anyway.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, this is part of this is just practice, like practice describing things. And then as things come to you in your imagination, you will describe them,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
That one of the things I described in one of my books was that writing is like an itch in your mind, and
Hmm.
sitting down to draft is like calamine lotion,
Yeah, that's true. That's a good
right?
metaphor. Mhm. Oh,
I
actually,
mean,
that was
it's
a
kind of
simile
true.
because you used like. Sorry.
Yes, I use like simile. Yeah,
Simile.
whatever.
Um, I would say this. Okay, we're gonna leave everybody on this. I'm gonna give everybody some homework. And if you guys want to
Oh,
share in the description, in the comments, this would be fun. I think this would be fun. But write one sentence that is describing the same moment. It's got to be the same thing, the same moment. So maybe it's like you said, going through airport security and meeting a TSA agent. And I want you to write it with every mood you can think of. Maybe one, they're fearful. Write it as a fearful, traveler. The second time
hmm.
you write it as you are now excited. Write it in love, write it in joy, write it in trepidation or fear, or you know um or anxiety. Write it in these different moods, and I'm assigning moods to them, not senses, because I want you to think about these moods as you are creating those sensory experiences. And I think that that would be a really fun way for you to practice this.
Oh yeah, be a great way to practice it.
Yeah. So if you guys want to share one of those, that would be awesome. I would love to see some examples of that. I'll even do some, I think I'll practice this week too on this, and I'll add it to the comments. But yeah, I think that show don't tell is definitely one of those practice to be better at things. Um, and like Troy said, sometimes we have to remind ourselves, like when we're getting into the drafting stage, we kind of tend to put this on the back burner because we really just want to get this and then out. But really, you don't ever want to give those and then stories to an editor, and certainly never give them to an audience, because your audience is going to be just as disappointed in your story as they were in the Wheel of Time series on Netflix. They're going to be
Yes.
very irritated. So it was funny. I think one of my clients just got his first, like, kind of, he got his first 2-star review on his book. And he gave a good little, like, these are good because they help me be a better writer. And I thought that was a good
Hmm.
attitude. But one of the things that he said is, I immediately, as the editor, were like, wait, what did this guy say? So I went in and, like, to read this comment. And sure enough, if the guy felt like it was a predictable story, he said it was a predictable story, even though he was surprised at a few things that happened in the story. But I think he was disappointed in the fact that he picked up a Western and it was troped and cliched. And of course, you're going to get tropes and cliches in a Western. I think this is one of those things that people don't understand about storytelling. But at the same time, um, it helps the writer think about that and kind of
Hmm.
like change things up, right? So, this is one of those things that you can do to practice being a better writer. I think that
Hmm.
writing with emotion and writing with those senses in mind is going to help you feel much more connected to your own characters, and you'll probably
Hmm.
get some super fans along the way.
For sure.
For
For
sure.
sure. It's always all about the craft.
Yeah.
Nothing about that is ever going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, next time we talk, let's deconstruct a chapter in the coming episodes. I think that would be kind of fun. And then let's talk about some other maybe some
Yeah.
things in the news. There's some weird stuff happening. I've got a
Well, and I think we'll bring some, I have a couple of guests
I
I
know
would
you were
like to
talking
bring on
about a
too.
couple. So
So yeah, there's a
have you
couple I
gotten
have
any
in mind.
confirmations?
No, because I didn't do much last week except for
You've
work
been
and go to my son's
You
wedding.
had a wedding.
So,
Yeah, you had a wedding.
I had to pretend that, well, I mean, I did care about that. I didn't pretend.
Yeah, you
It was
did
a lot of
care.
fun.
Yeah.
Um, and it
I
was
have a
pretty
wedding
great.
coming up here
But
soon too. I have to prepare for, so
yes,
my son
yes.
is also getting married.
Sons are easier than daughters, I will say that.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah.
have noticed it's a little more affordable as well.
Well, there is that aspect of it. And there's also, yeah, usually her family has a lot more say and control over what's
Yeah.
happening, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, not a bad thing.
So,
It's nice to take the back seat as the boy's mom this time around.
hmm.
I will say I still have one more daughter to marry off, and the first one almost she gave me a lot of gray hair, so I'm kind of hoping that the next one's not going to be too bad.
Not going to be as challenging. Yeah, you
Yeah,
always hope.
we'll see.
You always hope.
Anyway,
Yep.
well, thanks everyone for joining us, and remember to hit the subscribe button and the notification button, and we'll talk to you guys next week. See you later.
See you guys next week.